Hello. When Schubert opens this A major sonata, it's not just the beginning, it's an opening to a sunshine. It's not only that, it's more than that. It's all the senses that come to live. You breathe, you smell. There is light because of the open tenth. Well, naturally not because, but also as an ingredient musically. It opens to a not a tonic, not even to the tenth, but to the 12th. It's an invitation to follow the narration. Let me tell you something, and so forth. So, in a way, it's like opening in the morning the shutters and having the sunshine come in, or at least the light of outside. And at the same time, therefore, you invite the landscape which opens to you to come in. So it's an inner world, and Schubert is very clear about the inner world, repeated notes, not because, but as an ingredient. The static moments, the places where you feel like you stay still, yes, idle. And then the melody is the narration of the story. And the harmonization, like in his songs, is there to be coating the melody, but not overwhelming, not dramatic diminished seventh, not dramatic inharmonic modulations. In the recap, he would do a secondary dominant of the second degree modulation. Well, not really, isn't it? If it's secondary, that it stays primary. It's more like a different light on the same melody. And again, elegantly back to A major that never left. But this diminished seventh naturally is a little more dark or worrisome, whichever way psychologically you can express the sense of tension of the two tritons compared to the downbeat root position major triad. If you had started on the 6/4, it would lead to the next bar to have the root position, or but he starts on the root position on the downbeat after the short upbeat. Naturally, since it's the initial statement of the theme, no more only a melody, but a motivic leitmotif. In other words, it's a sonata, therefore a form, but substance comes in the form. It is absolutely marvelous to imagine that even if it's the first statement, which therefore should be projected in order to present the background, the narrative, the whole picture, soundscape, before to go further into the piece. I still believe, but that is because I don't know if it's true, I only feel rather than believe, is that the opening of this sonata is a reminiscence. It's not a statement of something present. Of course, you state it in the present because it's now, but I think you start with the upbeat as if you try to recall, reminiscent, something dear and distant. Wasn't it? Naturally, he doesn't say triple pianissimo, but just piano, which is already a lot, since the accompaniment is very moving with motion of eighth notes, breaking the arpeggios in pedal-held arpeggiated chords, which is what they are. Then they inevitably, accumulatively, because of the 88 dampers lifting, they accumulatively double up. Therefore, the length of sound of the half note of the high E or the low E, they take 2 beats, during which they decay. So you have to droppingly follow the curve of dropping of the decay of the note to pick it up for the next note, which is the step under the D, where the E has decayed. If not, you would obtain an unwilling accent, and it's not it's not a re, do, si, do, mi. It's mi, re, do, si, do, mi. So you have to blossom the resonance into the first note and then drop from there dynamically as well as melodically, since you go from the high E down to the E melodically an octave lower. Of course, if you sing, you can add vibrato and create a crescendo of sorts, if not dramatically effective, more emotionally vibrato intensified. It's not pianistic to do that, obviously. Bebung for the pianos, or perhaps a trill. It's silly. Oh God, so silly. But the accompaniment also has something to do with a linear melodic bassline voicing. And it's written with the bottom stems. Sorry, not stamps. No post office here. The stems. The cello voice that holds the bass not only as harmonic roots with the inversions, it's not just an accompaniment, it's a melodic dialogue with the top melodies, like 2 melodies on the 2 ends. In the outer ends. Well, it's easy to, and I do it a lot, to second guess and say, oh, he should have written those stems for the bass line throughout, so it's really 2 voices with an accompaniment in the middle. Is it? Well, no, because it's really, to be honest, not. At least in the notation. Now, how much intention compared to notation? Oh my God. I think it's a gap. It's probably like the hand open and the sand going through. That's what I think notation is compared to the intention, because very often composers either improvise, either conceptualize, whichever way, more cerebral or more intentional, instrumental directly, through whichever medium they expressed the inner expression of their creativity, inventivity, inspiration. when it's notated, I think in a way, okay, it freezes and it's transmittable beyond themselves, which is good. That means that other people can see their own way in the piece, even if they want to be true to the original. Nevertheless, in the translation, you taint it with your own personality. So the notation allows to transmit it more or less objectively. Then you add dynamic markings, this and that, more or less, the publishers and this and the other, and the teacher and the scholars and the whole world who's supposed to be knowing the truth. But in fact, nobody really knows. Everybody educatedly guesses, or not educatedly guesses, but guesses. Oh, it means that to me. Oh, it's so tender, therefore it has to be in two. I have to voice the bass. No, but I have to have more melody. Yes, but I want to have more melodically legato accompaniment arpeggios as broken chords, but with the fingers playing inside the keys. So I hear the eighth notes sort of blending, melting in the harmonization through the pedal, or the finger pedal, by holding the fingers, compared to single articulations with unicorda and right foot for legato and soft, but with just the finger. And already if I want to hear all that, then I hear the melody is the diva singing, the accompaniment under the right hand is the held, let's say, muted horns, holding the harmonic roots of each harmonic change, tonic, dominant, tonic in this simple case, then the melodic bass rising, and then the viola or perhaps the string section bringing through the eighth notes in motion, not the harmonic motions, it is static by half note harmony changes, but the motion, or the emotion, the emotional motion of their movement, without which it would be static. And so parts are static, holding half notes in the bottom of the right hand. In the top of the left hand, they're moving because they're broken arpeggios. I mean chords, therefore broken arpeggios. That's obvious. And so if I want to bring all of that, the melody, the bass line, the harmonic held sounds, and the arpeggios, and all that together, it becomes too busy. People say, no, simple, Schubert is simple, it's a song. Lieder, la la la, la 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 la. Of course, I could put German make-up words. Eine schöne, meine schönen sein. It was gibberish. But the whole point is that the resonance, the sounds, well, of course, the words are music. And when you put music of to the music of the words, you double music it, so to say. And anyway, it's clear that it's not in the middle. It's not in the bottom. It's obviously in the top. And because he didn't want, Schubert obviously didn't want to compromise with this dispositions spreading, since he didn't start on the octave nor the 10th, but on the 12th he should have then bunched up the chord in the right hand. Of course, then you would have a gap with the left hand. But because he spread it SATB style, or as we call it for the soprano, alto, tenor, bass, or for the quartet, the disposition rather than the bunched. But then the melody is on top, but the melody is not sung. You don't sing it, you play it singing. Of course, you have to play the legato that makes the sung play, overstaying words, each note, word, syllables. I would like to tell you how much. One can imagine words just for the sake of it. It's cheesy and fun, but nevertheless it makes it real. I would like to play legato, this sonata with all the right accents. And I put it on the wrong sign of the word. Oh, it's silly to make up things on the spot as I just do. It's somehow revealing also that when you imagine, you don't have to explain, and I'm trying to just explain the imagination. It's a little bit unreal. Perhaps one should remain in this evocative level of not a real voice, not real words, not a real lead composed by Schubert, where we would have a single voice telling a story and the pianist accompanying for the harmonic rhythmic mood coating. It could have been with repeated chords or there are pages, or perhaps a more moving 16th notes in the motion, or six tuplets. Perhaps if the words took care of describing some flow of water, perhaps it would have been the case. So, of course, we don't have words, so we cannot make up the words, therefore the accompaniment to the imaginary words, because then everybody is entitled to imagine their own words. And the mood generally is very relaxed, we would say, for American word. I would say fulfilled, or perhaps with a sense of well-being. Elegant for sure, welcoming, good-mannered. As soon as one searches for more, one finds difficulty if one doesn't have enough vocabulary in oneself to choose the right word for. Just like the right color, the right sound of the reminiscence. Mezzo pianissimo for the melody. I could say perhaps pastoral, welcoming, based. It doesn't have syncopations. It doesn't have much inversions. Its flow of beauty comes from the melodic line first and foremost, even if the bass has a melodic line, even if the accompaniment has a beautiful flowing, but it's still, without the melody there's nothing but the tonic, dominant tonic opening. Now he does that very often. In A minor he does in the opening of the Prigione Sonata. Also tonic, dominant tonic in A minor this time. But the accompaniment is more static since it's held harmonies. It starts with some suggestive arpeggiation for the indoor voices. And since it's in minor, he's inevitably driving us expressively emotional by the Neapolitan sixth. He could have gone. You could say it's a tool Mozart used, and Bach used, and Beethoven used, and everybody used. But it depends where in the sentence, how in the storytelling. If you abuse diminished sevenths, if you abuse Neapolitan sixths, then it loses its narrative effect. And to know when to place it and when not to. I don't know if they knew. I don't know if he knew. But I can imagine that he intuitively felt. And in a way, the banality, relatively so, of the opening of the Arpeggione Sonata or this, Deutsch 664 Sonata in A major, it gives that false concept when one is taught this kind of music, because of its beautiful candor and its simplicity, that we don't know what to find as a word other than that. But it's not simple in terms of not complicated. It's just that it is sort of streamed through the melodic line in the narrative storytelling without distractions from other voices. It's not a fugue. It's not pretending to be, at least I don't know if he pretended or not, but he didn't think of it as a purely polyphonic work, though he does have independent voices moving, the bass, the middle voice, which would be the tenor or the viola in the quartet, and the viola over the second violin. Remember in the beginning I was telling you, when he does these idle notes, it's the inside world. Perhaps the inner turmoil, the inner anguish. Oh my God, where am I? Where am I going? What is happening? Why am I doing this? It's sort of like talking to himself, or the narrator interrupting the narration and saying something more about the situation, the philosophic placement of things. And then returning statement, restate it, and repicking the narrative storytelling. As far as this disposition in question I mentioned earlier, my thoughts always come in different order and intersect and then come back. So forgive me for this. Some pianists who cannot, because of this, the width of the opening or the stretching of the hand, they are obliged to arpeggiate. Well, there is already an arpeggio written in the left hand, but this will be an arpeggiation of the harmonization of the melodic line's bottom part of the right hand. Then comes the question, do I voice it so I don't hear it enough that is arpeggiated, as if I want to keep it under the carpet like dust? No, I want to show it. It becomes extraordinarily part of the storytelling. But then the grace notes that become effectively so by the arpeggiation of the chord which is written as playable by one hand, plucked meaning, then they become distractive by the grace notishness. And then you wonder, should they be played faster? But then it becomes very busy. All of a sudden the calm, the pace, the well-being of this opening becomes distracted by the arpeggio quick spreading in order to sort of cover up. It's not a harp. Harps do that, but in the resonance of the whole resonance without the dampers, it sort of it becomes part of it. It would be on the harp. And so everything resonates, but on the piano with the dampers down, it sounds awkward. It sounds like I don't know what to do with it, basically. Short is too busy, spread is too melodic. And if I do it on the beat, I the melodic arrival of the downbeat of the melody, which was prepared by the dotted A16 of the upbeat. Is it in that place or even place? You need to find a way to interject in these arpeggiated harmonization. Reminds me of solo violin music, where inevitably you can play stops together, a group of them, notes together, but it's part of the bow going over the different strings, so you bridge, so to say, and the arpeggio is part of the, like in viola da gamba or cello, and the resonance of the strings creates a sense of pedal that holds. So you have these solo instruments like the Bach suites for cello or the sonatas for solo violin, where the combination of the harmonization and the spread arpeggiation, for obvious reasons, is integrated in the piece. On the harpsichord, where you have to hear the arpeggios. It's not that they are arpeggiated, it's more like they're chords, but you don't play them together, because the plucking system, if played all together, sort of cancels each other, and if not, you have to very quickly spread them. They reveal their harmonic smells or scents, and you feel like spreading of the harmonization when you quick arpeggiate towards a melodic note and from a bass note. The second partita by Bach, which on the piano is often plucked. And even so, it appears more because of the nature of the percussive nature of the hammers. It sounds like that. If it was, well, it's not played loud, but already it's softened by this spreading for hand position necessity. And I think one should integrate it in the narrative of the melody, of the harmony, of the arpeggio, of the melodic bass, of the mood, of the ecosystem of this sonata. Then comes the question of the tempo. Allegro moderato. Thank you, Schubert. What does it mean? Nothing. Lively, but moderately lively. Usually, if I'm lively, or somebody else might be differently lively, but still lively. If you're moderate, is that you're holding from being too much lively. So I'm going to be moderately excited. I think those kind of indications always, one is for the mood, one is for the pace. And the usual pace is sort of like the cancelling of the mood indication. If it says allegro ma non troppo, allegro, lively but not too much. And you could say andante di più, very, very driven but andante, walking. So you can say less but more, or more but not less, but yes but no. These indications drive me crazy, because in a way you could think, if I want to have the natural flow, this quote-unquote simplicity which comes from the expression rather than from the texture, from the perhaps interpretation compared to the notation. To a certain extent, over-voicing, over-intending all these beauties, all these affects, the arpeggio in this beat, the delay there, the slight rubato here, and then it becomes precious, and people say it lacks not simplicity. Simplicity in the sense of flow. And so you would think to have more of a flow, it would have been better to be notated in cut time, 2-2. problem also of the length of sound of the melodic note of the half note in the opening not decaying. But go figure if it's possible to be calm while you're so much things going in motion. The dotted rhythm, the eighth note moving in the accompaniment. Quick dropping of arpeggios into low keys which are heavy for the action of the piano, which of course he ignored because obviously he didn't want a crescendo musically for the piece, but pianistically would have been practical because the low keys are heavier to play, and therefore if you want to play them still soft, you have to be very careful not to start too soft, as well as to push them quickly deep from inside. So in order to have them with straight fingers piloted by the palm and a free wrist that moves like a imaginary instrument bow of a violin or cello. But then in a slower tempo, it's like starting to speak in syllables instead of, or in spelling the words. I-L-O-V-E-Y-O-U. And of course it's in 4/4, not in 2/2. Thanks to the pedal and the modern instruments that have a longer decay, one can play together both hands and hear the melody in a slow tempo for the sake of it. But does it mean that the group of bars that construct the phrase, the hypermeter, which I think brings its sense of simplicity by showing the destination. I go there until I reach that, and I like this to go to the dominant and back to the tonic. In other words, whatever you're saying it through a meaningful, not just sounds like babies speaking in onomatopoeias, but saying something which it is, the phonemes injected with meaning. So there is a storytelling, regardless if it's not meant specifically with lyrics. And therefore you realize that this, whichever lyrics they are, they bring you with sentences and therefore with commas, or you have to organize therefore your phrasing, your agogic, your pacing, and therefore if you go the third bar to the fourth bar, where you return to the opening do sharp of the upbeat. So if it's a 4-bar structure phrase, you don't want to make a diminuendo on the second bar, crescendo on the third, and diminuendo on the fourth. And we start because it becomes too wavy and you lose the attention. It's like people who speak to you like this and you forget what they're saying because you hear the level of their notes of the speech. No. It shouldn't be either all the same notes, do, re, mi, re, do, si, do, mi, nor do, re, do, si, do, mi. This difficulty of expressing the beauty of it without to overwhelm it by the sense of the fact that he chooses to do step motion in the opening 3 notes, and a step motion in the next 3 notes down, and then all of a sudden a leap of a 6th, which brings us to the octave down drop. But he doesn't do step down the octave. He just has this short 3 notes in step motion, and then all of a sudden the drop. And I find that this is very dramatic, because then you can say, oh, this leap of the dot down 6th is dramatic. If it was, I would be just doing the same thing in the same space, doing step motion, which is so sung. But if I have a leap, after I had only step motion, then I can be driven to overexpress it and do a diminuendo, because it drops and it leaps down at the same time as it drops. Not only drops but leaps, and at the same time it withholds down, it retracts from the spreading. So if you just follow the intuitive opening and closing of the melodic line of the harmonization, you would not do any construction of group of bars for the melodic line because of the lack of, in fact, of lyrics. If the story says, I would like to tell you how much, and you wonder, well, how much what? So you have to sustain, I would like to tell you that I love you, for instance. I know it's cheesy, but the point of the story is that if we don't have the lyrics to maintain our attention, then the melodic line shouldn't either direct us in the expression that each leap becomes a dramatic drop or dramatic rise. We should not ignore it either. It's not like it's written on the same note, nor random notes, obviously not. But even if it was, which is plausible, much more than the preceding one, then the storytelling takes another meaning. So he chooses, as a composer, to give us the mood, the atmosphere, therefore, the storytelling, the pacing of it, the way to display the different elements of the texture through the score, where we can read the bottom stems, the bottom held stems, and the melody. So you see, so much goes on into this simplicity bag that you have to explore it all, empty it all, and just let it flow. And let the music speak, as they like to say. At least let him speak, rather than you speak over him, as I just did, trying to explain, express, describe, define the different elements. And in fact, the more I tried, the more I digged myself in a hole, intellectually speaking. So, as Mademoiselle Boulanger told me at the end of her life, when we studied for almost 10 years, at least for me, past like 10 minutes, she said, now you have to forget everything and then go ahead from what I taught you, therefore. And I was thinking, same here. So many elements one can describe or display, cherish, organize, care for, mean for, and then ultimately they have to blend in a fusion. They have to merge in the traffic of the emotional storytelling. Which Schubert, in his infinite goodness and generosity, left us, is today, centuries after, to just marvel and say, oh, thank you.